Hello, everyone, and a very warm welcome. Today, we're diving into something truly incredible, how our entire digital world gets beamed around the globe through strands of glass thinner than a human hair. You've tuned in to Cognito Key, and I'm so glad you're here. We're about to unlock one of the biggest secrets behind our modern, connected lives. I mean, have you ever really truly wondered how that works? How a video from halfway across the planet just appears on your screen almost instantly? It feels like pure magic, right? Well, it's not magic. It's some seriously brilliant physics. And the hero of this story, the real powerhouse behind our connected world, is the optical fiber. Yep, this tiny, super flexible little thread is the backbone of, well, pretty much everything online. So what is it exactly? Well, an optical fiber is actually a beautifully simple idea. It's just a strand of glass or plastic, super thin, often no thicker than one of your own hairs, and its whole job is to transmit information using signals made of light. Okay, so let's peek inside one of these things. We're going to see how a simple structure can do such a powerful job. It might just look like a boring cable from the outside, but trust me, what's inside is pure genius. It all comes down to three main parts. First, right in the very middle, you've got the core. Think of this as the main highway where the light actually travels. Then, wrapped around that is something called the cladding. This layer acts like a perfect mirror, and it is super important. And finally, on the very outside, you have the jacket, which is basically the fiber's protective armor. Now here is the secret sauce. This is the really crucial part. The whole trick relies on one key detail. The core has to have a higher refractive index than the cladding. You know, that's just a fancy way of saying the light has to bend more in the core than in a layer around it. This one little rule is what makes this whole system work. So how does light actually travel down this tiny tube without getting lost? Well, it's all thanks to a really cool bit of physics called total internal reflection. It sounds complicated, I know, but the idea is actually amazing. And you might be asking yourself, how does the light stay trapped inside this tiny glass tunnel? I mean, it's glass, right? Shouldn't the light just escape? Well, this is where that whole refractive index thing comes in, because the core is denser for light than the cladding. When light hits the wall between them at a sharp enough angle, it doesn't pass through. Nope. Instead, it reflects completely, bouncing right back into the core. It basically turns the wall into a perfect, flawless mirror. So just picture this. A little beam of light carrying your data enters the core, and as it travels, it keeps hitting the wall of the cladding, making all these continuous reflections. And it just keeps bouncing and bouncing, propagating forward without ever escaping. It's perfectly trapped, zigzagging its way down the fiber for miles and miles. Incredible, right? All right, but it's not a one-size-fits-all situation. There are different kinds of fibers, kind of like different highways for light. So let's talk about the two main types you'll hear about, single mode and multimode. So what's the difference? Well, single mode fiber has a really, really tiny core, so there's only one path for the light to take. Nice and simple. On the other hand, multimode fiber has a larger core, which means light can actually bounce around and take multiple different paths at once. You can think of it like this. Single mode is like a perfect, straight, one-lane road. The signal stays super sharp and clear, which is why we use it for really, really long distances, like connecting continents under the ocean. But multimode? That's more like a big multi-lane highway. The signals can bounce around a lot more, which can cause a bit of a traffic jam, or what we call signal distortion. It's still great, but mainly for shorter trips, like inside a data center or an office building. So we've seen how amazing fiber optics are, but like anything, there are upsides and downsides. Let's break down the advantages and disadvantages, shall we? Okay, let's start with the good stuff. The signal is incredibly clean because it's totally immune to distortion from things like power lines. It's also really secure. You can't just tap into a beam of light. Plus, the cables are surprisingly durable and can carry data over huge distances without losing quality. But of course, there are some drawbacks. It can be pretty expensive to install and maintain all this stuff. And even though the cables are strong, the glass fiber inside is delicate and needs that extra protective jacket. And for those super long distance connections, you need special devices called repeaters to boost the signal along the way. When you really stop and think about it, it's kind of mind-blowing, isn't it? We can send our data across entire oceans in a thread of glass, all powered by light. So it really makes you wonder,
What's the next big barrier for communication that we're going to break?
And that's a wrap for today. Thank you so much for watching Cognito Key. If you enjoyed this explainer and learned something new, please don't forget to hit that like button, share it with your friends, and of course, subscribe for more. We'll see you in the next one.